Welcome back, guys, to another C programming tutorial where we are looking at the different input and output functions that we can use in order to display messages on screen as well as to collect information from the user. The last time we completed a code where we had asked the user for their first name. We also allowed them to enter that first name, and then we were able to store that name within a location. We were also able to display a second message on screen to show them the name that they had entered. So for this tutorial, we will be introducing a second declaration of variables. So the last time we also declared a character variable. For this time we're declaring where we're collecting a number from the user. So let's say this time we want to collect the age from a user. So again, we had our header section that included the preprocessor and the header file. We then proceeded to the main function where we were able to place within this location the different parts of our program where we would be displaying messages on screen using our output functions, and then the input function, which allows for our user to enter information within the system. So for this time we are declaring a second variable, and we're also now introducing the use of comment in our program. All right, so on line 3, I would just want to click in that section and be able to include some space so that we can see how is it that we're making the changes throughout our program. All right, so at this time we want to collect the age from a user, and then now we're trying to refer to what data type would an age be. So we know that age would technically be a whole number and not an integer, and not a decimal number. So a whole number in our program would indicate a data type called integer. All right, how is it that we declare integer? We use a shortening, which is int, followed by the variable name, which would be age in our case, and then we could also initialize our default value. So before I go ahead and do that, I just want to include a comment to say that this is the section where we declare or define our variables as well as to initialize them. So for this I will be using a single line comment. So a single line comment is followed by 2 forward slash or backward slash, right? And then I would give the indication as to what the following line would be about. So this, again, we said that we're declaring and initializing variables. Right, so if someone came and was reading through our program, then they would be able to know what this section is about. All right, so I will select enter on my keyboard again, and then we're saying that we want to collect the age from a user, and we know that the data type for age would be an integer because it is a whole number that we're planning to collect from the user. And again, we know that in order to declare our variables, we start off with the data type followed by the variable name, and if it is we're adding the initialization in the exact line, then we could apply the default value. And in our case, our default value is currently 0. So it is int, which is short for integer, followed by the variable name, and we're going to call this location age. So we know that only age would be stored within this location. Following this, we would assign a 0 value, so it's equal to 0 currently because no age has been entered as yet, and we then have a default value to say 0. All right, once completed with this line, I would proceed to close off with my line symbol, which is the semicolon. So far I have added a comment. I have also added declaration as well as initialization, so that would technically be a 2-in-1 case for this. All right, the next thing that I would want to do is to include a section that would give us the user a display a message on screen to say to enter their age. Alright, so the first section we had where the user was supposed to enter their name. So we could also put a comment in this section. Again, I'll use a single line comment to say that user will see a message and then enter name. Or user would be asked to enter their name. Alright, so for this print line, that would indicate that the user would be asked to enter their name. And if I go to the end of that line and I put some space, I could also a next comment to say that this now would read the user input and store in a variable location. Alright, so from here we're telling what each of these sections were expected. And again, for the next line, I could also include another comment, so double slash to indicate that this line now would print a message showing the user's name. Alright, so from here we know that most of this section would have been pertaining to the user's name. So let's say now we're going to be including some additional space, and then we're going to be including a comment to say that we want to display a message for the user to enter their age. So similar to line 9 and 10, that's what we would technically be repeating for this part. So again, the comment, and we're telling whoever it is that is coming to check the program afterwards, or even to remind ourselves as the programmer what these sections would be about. Alright, so this would be saying prompt user for their age. So the message would come up to say please enter age. So again, I select enter, and then on line 19 I am now wanting to collect a function from this header to print out and output on screen. What was the term that we've been using so far? Printf. So it's printf bracket, and then within the bracket we have a double quotation. Within the double quotation, what is the message that the user would see on screen? Please enter your age. Alright, and then from here, oh, so I left off the printf, and you should also take note of these because a computer is not familiar with a print output function. It is only familiar with the printf. Alright, and then from here at the end of this line I would proceed with my semicolon because the requirements for this on-screen printing has been completed. So again, I enter 2 times just for spacing, and I add a comment to say what is expected to take place next. So I would probably go ahead, put another comment to say read the user input and store the age, or accept. So I could either accept or read, same word interchangeably. Alright, so we used read before, so we could go ahead and to say accepts user's age and stores. Alright, so in the next line now we're saying from the standard input output header, what function can we use that the computer understands to know that it is expected to collect an input from the user and then store it? What we have identified before, the use of a scanf. So scanf collects from the user whatever data that they need to enter. This is followed by the double quotation, and again there are 2 sections, so a double quotation inside the bracket, and then followed by a comma which would give a second part. Again, within the double quotation we want to identify the format string that will be collecting the data type for age. What would be the format string? The last time we checked for the table it was %d when we are collecting integers. So that is exactly what we're putting, %d. And then this line indicates that this is collecting the exact age from the user. And then for the second part, where will this age be stored? In a location called age. Alright, but for this one it's going to be a slight difference between the age and the first name. So age we rectified was a string, and that was collecting the use of letters only, and where the Percentage D for integers, that is collecting numeric values. So once we're collecting numeric values, we will need a symbol before the variable name. So the symbol that we use for storing numbers is the use of an ampersand followed by the name, the variable name, which was age. All right, so this is telling us that we are now able to store the age that the user enter within a location called age. The reason we did not use this for the string is because based on the rule that is outlined for C, the ampersand is used when we're collecting numeric values, but where string are concerned, we would be reducing that symbol. All right, so at the end of this line, we would include our semicolon. Okay, so far, the user would enter their name, right? The user would see the message to enter their name, and then this point they are allowed to enter their name. The computer then push their name to a storage location called first name. Following that, the computer would then allow for that to be stored until the information is requested from the user. So the next line now is where the user now would want to display a final message just to remind the person of the name that they had previously entered. And the name that they would have previously entered, the message was "your name is," followed by the format string, which will represent or call it the actual name that was entered, and then the second part goes directly to the location to pull that name that was stored within first name. Second part now, it includes the age, so the user is asked to enter their age. All right, so they see this message on screen, and then they would be allowed to enter their name using the format string age, because it is an integer, so we had %d. Once this is collected, it is then pushed to a storage location called age. All right, similar to how we displayed the name on screen, we could also include a message to print out, so that's printf, a message to say your age is, followed by collecting the location where that age was stored. So in the bracket, the message to be printed out, your age is, and then we use the format string to tell the exact name that we're collecting. So that was the age. I keep mixing up the age and the name for this part, my apologies. So it would be %d for integer, because the age was a number and it was exactly a whole number and not a decimal number. Second part of this display on screen, we're collecting now from a location this actual age. The name of this location was age. All right, so once we're also printing out on screen, the only time we use the ampersand symbol is when we're doing the Scanf, which is collecting the input and storing. Whenever we're printing out on screen, we would only use the variable name without the use of the ampersand. All right, so far that would have been the updates for that section. So let's go ahead now and see. Before we can go ahead, I can tell you also that there would be some sections here that will show up where we're having messages, your name is, going across with another message, please enter age. So to align some space, allow some space or some line to be able to be distributed between the information to collect, remember we use the /n to represent a new line. So what we could go ahead and do is to include a new line maybe at the beginning of this. So this could tell us that when the person enter their name, then this now would proceed to a new line. So I /n for a new line for that one, right? And then I could also place a new line %n for this one. We could also put the /n for the end of the sentence just to be safe some of the time as well. All right, so again, I could now go ahead and run this program to see what our results are. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm currently seeing an error message here. And again, it is good when we are able to see these from early to know exactly where our error was. So currently this is telling us that we're having an error on line 25 and maybe at a character section 1 there, and they also give us some additional information to say that they expected a semicolon before the closing bracket. So if we go ahead now and check our document, right, we can see that on line 24, right, at the end we are missing in fact a semicolon. So I would go ahead and proceed to add that and then attempt to rerun the program. All right, so on screen now we have our program being presented. So we have the first part, which was to enter the first name only. So the person's name was Pam. So I enter Pam, enter that, and we get the message. And then following that, we also get a second message. Please enter your age. So let's say Pam's age was 18. So Pam entered the age 18 and she got the message, your age is 18. So in fact, the program did exactly what it was expected to do, and that was to give the person their name as well as their age. So again, this was just an additional example just to show you how we could collect information that was not character or string, but in fact a number. In our next tutorial, we will be proceeding to start doing some form of calculations to see how the computer is able to store numbers or values and then produce the results on screen. Thank you so very much again for tuning in, and please stay tuned for the next video tutorial.